Tēnā koutou katoa, nau mai haere mai ki tēnei hui o te kaunihira. Good morning everybody and welcome to this meeting of the Rotorua Lakes Council. This is our final long-term plan meeting before final adoption, which will be on the 26th of June at our council meeting. And today we will have a summary of the decisions that we have made through our long-term plan deliberations, and importantly also the outcome of that from a financial perspective, including what our expected rates increase will be. So before we start the meeting, I'd like to invite Councillor Barker to open us up with a karakia.
Thank you, Worship. Let us pray. Tutawa mai urunga, tutawa mai I raro, tutawa mai I roto, tutawa mai I waho. Ki tau ai te Māori tū, te Māori ora, ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tāi ki e.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barker. Just a reminder to everybody, this meeting is being live streamed. We do have Councillor Waru joining us by Zoom, and we have an ongoing apology. Morena. Ongoing apology from Councillor Patterson, and also an apology from Councillor Maxwell. We do also have an apology from Councillor Kiriopa, who will be here shortly. She just had a prior appointment. May I please have a mover and a seconder to accept these apologies? That's moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Lee. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you, and we will get underway. I'll hand over to Thomas to overview his presentation for us today. And also, can I please acknowledge and thank the staff for being able to prepare this for us as speedily as they did, bearing in mind that we concluded these discussions on Friday as well. So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing what the outcome of this is.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good morning, councillors. I'm just going to go through the presentation and just leave questions at the end. I will go fairly quickly, but happy to take any questions at the end, as I said. Just going to quickly summarise the decisions that you've made over the 14 proposals that were considered over the previous 2 days across the 6th and 7th of June, covering these topics. The first one with regards to the community outcomes, you did adopt the 9 community outcomes as per the consultation document, so that will be reflected in the final document. The second one was the East Rotorua Sewerage Scheme. So we are going to introduce the capital rate to repay that scheme on the 1st of July. There were multiple decisions made for this. The first one was increasing the $1,500 subsidy to $2,700. So that was a reflection of the $1,500 subsidy had been the same since early 2003-04, and the $2,700 reflects the CPI inflationary adjustment over that 21-year period. The second element of it was the Ministry for the Environment advancing the balance of some of the funds in the Rotorua Lakes scheme to us. That was $10 million, and the need to repay that back, and that is being repaid back over a 10-year period. So that moves the $10 million cost from the direct beneficiaries and is now being picked up by those ratepayers that pick up the Lakes Enhancement Rate, which is about 27,000 of our 28,000 ratepayers, and that has an impact of $37 per ratepayer because it is a uniform charge. In addition to that, an additional $4.5 million was recognised as having wider benefit, and so they were the cost escalation costs, damage, as well as I think some of the compliance costs out there. So that's being moved from the direct beneficiaries to the wider ratepayers that are connected to the sewerage network, and so that's about 25,000 ratepayers. Now, the $10 million is being repaid over a 10-year period, whereas the 4.5 is being repaid over a 20 to 25-year period, and so that will have a $15.50 impact per ratepayer, and once again, that is a uniform charge. As in, when I say uniform charge, every ratepayer pays the same amount, rather than variable, such as on capital value. The impact of that is that the projected final cost and what the capital rate will be set on will be $19,500 per ratepayer, or $22,486 GST inclusive. Now, obviously, that rate is that 19,000 is not being rated up front. That's being spread over a 25-year period, and I don't have the information here, but I think that has the impact of about $1,100 per ratepayer per year, spread obviously across the 4 instalments that we collect our rates upon. The third item was the short-term accommodation, and so where you landed was that residential properties used for short-term accommodation will now only pick up the business and economic development targeted rate, and the rate will be the same rate and calculated the same as all other accommodation providers, hoteliers and moteliers. Residential properties advertised for 60 days or more during the year, only where there is it's where they advertise a whole dwelling, not individual rooms, not granny flats, and will only apply where there is one dwelling on the rateable unit. Where there are multiple dwellings on a rateable unit, such as a farm, and it has a cottage being rented out, then we're not applying that in this year, and also where there are adjoining dwellings and multiple use, then they won't apply any either. So it's just strictly a whole dwelling on one rateable unit, and where the whole home is being advertised, not individual rooms, not spare rooms, not granny flats, not sleep outs, and any other iteration of that. Rotorua NZ funding, so approved the 200,000 inflationary adjustment and the 450 support for the campaign to promote Rotorua and Rebuild, obviously directly tied to the previous item with regards to being funded predominantly from the business and economic development targeted rate. Inner city revitalisation. $60,000 additional funding for renewals into that space for the 10 years, and in year 4, 5 and 6, 3.3 million in each year, so 10 million in total. And what that does is gives a couple of years to work with stakeholders and that group to come up with a master plan on how best to invest that money. Fourth or fifth, I've lost count now, Aquatic Centre Stage 3. So you have chosen to defer to year 2, put $200,000 into year 1 with regards to revise scope and timing and explore partnerships opportunity. And we'll be going back to the Department of Internal Affairs as to whether those funds can be prioritised back to another core infrastructure program, such as one of the 3 waters programs. And if that is not successful, then stage 3 would go ahead, subject to obviously that preliminary design scoping. And if not, then if the funds are reprioritised to one of the 3 waters projects, then other funding would have to be sought before that project can commence. The skate park, we put the original budget back into year 3, recognising the investment to date on the preloading, which leaves 650,000 in year 3 from council, and seeking further funding from the community to raise the remaining. I'm not sure that's quite right. I think it was 1.8 million towards the cost of the skate park, and so effectively gives the community funding group a target, and should they achieve that target, come back to council, then we will work with them with regards to releasing the balance of the funds and getting that worked. So that, as I said, gives them 2 years to work towards that. Pensioner Housing agreed to go to market with regards to expressions of interest around a CHIP or a housing provider that's not going to market to sell them on the free open market, but to work with a housing provider that also provides wraparound services and hopefully provides a better outcome for our residents and tenants in our community housing that we provide. Community funding has been left as is, as suggested in the proposal with regards to grants, so that was being retained at $295,000. The community boards, you resolved to provide each of the boards $125,000, and also I think you mentioned that if there was a project that spanned multiple years, you're also open to carrying those funds forward as well, where we could. Across the life of the LTP. The Tarawera Sewage Scheme, there was no decision that was made with regards to the final cost distribution to direct beneficiaries. What you have agreed in principle is on the back of the decision on Rotorua to lift the $1,500 contribution to $2,700, and you've asked staff to go back and work with Bay of Plenty Regional Council and Central Government, in particular the Ministry for the Environment, with regards to seeking additional funding to lessen the burden on the direct beneficiaries, being the homeowners at Tarawera. Lakes infrastructure enhancement, so no change there. So again, recognising that the lake levels are high and that Stavros and the infrastructure team are working with a wider stakeholder group around lake levels and understanding that impacts. And once that assessment has been done, we'll reassess with regards to what sort of investments can be made into lakes infrastructure. Once either lake levels retreat from their historical high, or whether this is the new norm and what that impact may be on new infrastructure going forward. As a reminder, with regards to repairs and maintenance and renewals of our existing infrastructure, this doesn't impact that. We've fully funded our renewal budgets across the board, including renewal of lakes infrastructure. In addition to that, was the roading program. So there were a number of items that you considered here. Most of these were added back in to year 4, so no budget being allocated for rural roads, rural street improvements, urban street improvements, walking and cycling in years 1, 2 and 3, with those budgets coming back online from year 4 onwards, and multi-road lines and rural seals improvements being re-established from year 1 onwards, and those amounts every year for the 10 years. Vacant land, you're approved to continue on with applying the 50% remission on vacant land, so that remission will continue to apply for those vacant sections, land where they have services running past for water, wastewater collection and sewage, and so those properties will continue to receive a 50% remission. So the impact of all of this on rates is we've moved from 10.24 to 11.42, and predominantly driven from 4 aspects actually. There's a little one additional to that one. So Rotorua being the $4.5 million, and as I just said before, that was a $15.50 increase for every ratepayer connected and currently paying the sewerage pan charge. The Ministry for the Environment loan, $10 million, that equated to $37 per ratepayer. That picks up the lakes enhancement rate, being 27,000 of our 28,000 ratepayers. And thirdly, the introduction of some of those capital projects back into the establishment of year 1 has a general rate component with regards to funding the debt repayment on the borrowings that would come on board, and so those 3 items were driving the change. With regards to our debt, so prior to this in our draft, remembering we have got 2 debt limits. We've got our external debt limit, which is our hard ceiling of 280% of our debt, which is the orange dotted line on the graph, and we've got our internal limit that we've set ourselves, which is 250. And previously in the draft LTP, we went out for consultation. We had a $50 million gap between the 250 limit and our debt cap peak in 2029, and with the introduction of some of those capital items that we talked about before, and predominantly those transport ones, that has reduced the borrowing capacity against our $250 million limit down to $38 million. So that's had a $12 million impact by year 4. And with regards to rates increases, no real change. Sorry, apologies, very hard to read on the slide. The key changes in year 1, where the majority of those changes took place, and years 2 to 10, while there's some marginal changes in there, not enough to show on this graph with regards to rounding. And so what you'll see there is year 1, 10.2, going up to 11.4. So the impact of that on the sample ratepayers, and bearing in mind that we haven't applied the reval to this yet, and the team did try to model the reval numbers over the weekend, but we just ran into some time constraints as we were trying to work on this, and remembering we did get the revals very late from the valuer and the valuer general, so that will give you an update of what this looks like. And what you see there is the far right column, the 10.24, how that sat across the individual categories. 11.1 for business on average, 8.42 for farming on average, 8.24 for residential rural on average, and then 10.4, and they've all come up slightly. And in particular, the biggest changes is for the residential urban area, and that is predominantly on the back of the changes in particular to the lakes enhancement rate and the sewerage rate, which are uniform annual charges, and because they're fixed amount, have while they all have the same monetary impact across the board, from a percentage perspective, it has a larger percentage impact on our residential ratepayers. So with that, we do ask that you note these decisions and confirm the finalisation, and the team will continue to work and finalise the final long-term plan document and work with audit on completing the final elements and getting an audit opinion. So with that, happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas. First question from Councillor Waru.
Oh, kia ora, no, sorry, I was just trying to ask if we could put the presentation onto the Zoom screen so I could follow Thomas's board a little easier, but I managed to do it on my own iPad. Kia ora.
Catch Pie, and it should also be in your Stella now as well. Yep. Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Te Manakura, and through you. Thank you, Thomas, and your staff for providing this. Could I just confirm, because I had a few calls over the weekend from folks who have just received their new valuations. Are these calculations and rate rises based on the new valuations?
Oh, no, Councillor, as I said, we haven't been able to model the changes with the new revals, so hopefully this week, looking at for the poor team members that have to do that, we did run into a time and technical issue over the weekend trying to model that.
Thank you. So when would we have an update next week, or is it by the end of the month?
Hopefully in the next week. So we do intend to, at the next, I think, committee meeting, to give you a confidential update on how the revals have looked and what the impact is remembering the ejection period is still currently open, and we'll work as fast as we can to remodel this rates against the new values and show you what the impact is.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good morning, Thomas. Thank you to you and all your staff for this hard work. It's been a lot to do, isn't it? I have 3 questions from the short-term accommodation community. At the earliest opportunity, could you please provide clarification on the following points? 1. The process I need to follow in order to submit a formal expression of interest to participate in the working group for short-term rental accommodation.
That would be a question for the Chief Executive, who we had instructed, and we did that just last week, so that is still to be developed, I imagine.
Okay. Second question. The process, timeframes and point of contact owners should target to obtain written confirmation that their property is excluded from proposed rate changes prior to the July 1st rates strike deadline.
Sorry, is that a question?
Yes, that's a second question that the short-term accommodation people. I can repeat it if you like.
So just as a reminder, we sent 912 letters out and we've received a number of queries from that we're working through. Unfortunately, the rates team got sick. We're also modelling, so it has taken quite a bit of time to work through those. So those residents that received the letter follow those instructions and we will deal with that. If you didn't receive the letter, then you haven't been caught, and so we don't need to reach out and make contact with you around the changes because it doesn't apply.
Yeah, I think this is clarification as to which owners are now excluded from the original set of letters that was sent out.
Yep, so the original set of letters was sent out based on exactly the same criteria that we're applying, so there is no change. What we are aware, though, is that there were some properties that were captured with regards to multiple dwellings in there, and we've had those pointed out, and so we are working through those with the property owners.
And I'll just get our Chief Executive to provide further comment.
Thank you, Worship. So I believe the question was, who do you contact if you've got some questions around whether your property was included or not based on the original letter? The original letter contained some contact information to reach out to council. That is still absolutely valid, and people who have a concern about whether their property should or shouldn't be included, having received a letter, they should continue to correspond with the details provided in that letter.
Okay, so the third question they have is, could you please provide clarification on the process, timeframes and point of contact that affected owners should target to ensure they avoid commercial rating next year if they intend to cease short-term accommodation operations?
In the presentation you've had confirmation that the general rate remains residential. Was there any further answer you wanted to provide, Thomas? Yeah. So that should no longer apply.
No, this is for next year if they choose to stop short-term accommodation starting in 12 months' time.
Yep. So if the homeowner ceases to provide short-term accommodation and falls below the 60 days in the next 12-month period, then that will be picked up, and at the next time of setting the RID and setting the rates, they would shift back to being full residential and wouldn't pick up that business and economic development rate.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Question from Councillor Waru.
Sorry, Thomas, it might have already been answered, but I don't know if I quite picked it up. Given the, it's about the short-term rental accommodation, given the, what will I call it, given the packages that are available for people to advertise are, you know, they usually take them out for a year, something like that, has that been taken into account in your figures?
I'm not sure what you mean by taken out for a year.
So, you know, a lot of them that I spoke to, the short-term rental area, mentioned that when they buy advertising packages, they are usually packaged in a year or 6 months package or a year package, an annual package.
Yeah. Okay. So
have we got some things in place to deal with that?
yeah, we don't actually. They may advertise and market their properties in all they like. What we actually specifically look for is days available to book to stay. So if it is available to book and for people to stay, we pick that up.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Got it.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Waru. Were there any further questions? No, there appear to be none. Thank you very much, Thomas. Once again, we thank the staff for providing this to us so responsively. I know our community has been wanting to know what the impact of this will be, and we thank you all very much, including, of course, our staff who were heavily involved in the consultation period and ensuring that we connected with as many people as possible. I do also want to reiterate that having 1,500 people partake in this process was a massive accomplishment, but also a significant help for us in making these final decisions here. So we have had There is no decision required today. The purposes of today was for informing us in the community of what our decisions last week resulted in. But as you saw at the end of the presentation, and I'll read it out, we do note that the impacts of the feedback and decision making on the final LTP and rates increase for year 1, and also that we note these decisions are now final, confirms that there are no further changes to the LTP financial model, and that we also have instructed the Chief Executive to finalise the LTP proper document, which will be adopted on the 26th of June 2024. So we look forward to coming together again as a council then. We thank you all very much, and this will conclude this meeting this morning. Question from Councillor Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I thought we were waiting for confirmation from central government about the funding that is currently aimed at the aquatic centre. So how would that change the equation if we received confirmation?
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So through you, the timeframe for being able to make changes to the long-term plan model doesn't quite align with the central government decision making. So the decision that has been made allows us to proceed with the long-term plan adoption, but doesn't allow those funds to be spent until those negotiations are concluded, and I come back to council to confirm the outcome of those negotiations and then make subsequent decisions. We can't, just in terms of the timeframes available to us to pass through an audit and adopt the LTP, we don't have the option of not making that decision at this point, which is why you made a decision to allocate the funds for the purposes of the long-term plan.
Thank you very much.
Got a question from Councillor O'Brien and then Councillor Waru.
Thank you, Te Manakura. I'd just like to ask, so sorry, when we say it's final, where does that leave the proposed changes to the development contributions?
Might just get Thomas to answer this, as I believe it will come as a separate policy paper.
Thank you.
You'll make your final decisions on the development contributions policy on the 26th, following the adoption of the long-term plan.
Thank you. So so is that wording correct? That it's a full and final, but we still have?
That's correct.
Possible.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I might just get the Chief Executive to provide further context to make sure that we fully understand the timing of these decisions.
Sorry, thank you, Your Worship. So it's the way it's been explained to me by Mr. Collet, who understands this much better than me, is that the development contributions policy is a consequence of the long-term plan and somewhat independent decision. So you'd adopt the long-term plan and then have debate and discussion on the DC policy, which will determine how the funding that's approved in the long-term plan is collected through the DC policy. I hope that is a helpful explanation. It was helpful for me to have it phrased in that way. Thank you.
Thank you. So may I ask a supplementary? So if the proposed DC changes come before this council and we oppose them, where does that leave your financial position? Thank you.
Where does that leave our financial position? It depends on the decision that you make. So the policy itself, remember, is there's two items that we are seeking clarity on. One is the cash flow method of recovery, and one is with regards to the catchments. So overall, those two changes shouldn't actually make any significant change to the revenue that has been collected. If you don't make a decision on the amended policy, then my understanding is I'd have to check, but the existing policy would probably continue on with regards to the charging regime. But we would be unable to recover a significant amount of capital investment into growth because the old policy hasn't identified that and picked that up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Waru.
Just in regards to, to comms, it was a big kōrero throughout this whole process. When we finally get to when we finalise this LTP, are there any plans to go out and actually explain to the community how we got to these decisions? Is there any plan to do that, or even target particular communities around particular things that issues that pertain to that particular community? I'm not sure.
Through you, Your Worship. So
Comms was a big issue.
through you, Your Worship. So there have been some comms that have already gone out. So there was communications on the clarifications for the Airbnb rates that went out over the weekend. We are working on compiling all of these decisions and going back out to the community. You might appreciate we haven't had time to really map that out just yet, but look forward to that in the next couple of weeks.
I look forward to that. Kia ora.
Thank you. And for members of the public, there is information on Council's website about the decisions that we've made, and also Council's social media channels. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you. For clarity on the DC decision, we've modelled the old policy in this, and we would update the model based on the change of decision, change if we choose to. No, the LTP revenue line for DCs is modelled on the new proposed charges. So remembering, by adopting the long-term plan and identifying the underlying capital works program that is targeted to growth, that has that fun effect to the DC policy with regards to how that's recovered. I think I understand. Thank you.
Thomas.
Just to help clarify, if you're uncomfortable with the level of development contributions and the amounts that are being recovered, the way of fixing that is to not do the spend and not have the growth. And I think if you have the investment into your LTP and it is specifically targeted for growth, and we have a policy that growth pays for growth, then there's a natural flow on into the development contribution and the charges that are set. So, yep.
Thank you. There appear to be no further questions. Look, elected members, we will have the opportunity for comments on this when we adopt our long-term plan on the 26th of June. But if there are no further questions, then we will conclude today's session on the financials and the outcomes of our decisions. So thank you very much once again. Thank you to our members of the public who have come. And I will now ask Councillor Barker to please close us with a prayer.
Thank you, Bishop. Kia whakaria te tapu, kia wate ai te ara, kia turiki whakataha ai, kia turiki whakataha ai, haumie huie tā ki e.
Thank you very much. Our long-term plan deliberations and also this outcome of decisions are officially closed. Thank you very much.